Good day, folks. In this lesson, we're going to work with a physics system and how to add box colliders. So let's get to it. First, I'm going to start off, I'm going to just clean up my scene a little bit. I'm just going to add, as far as my game objects, I'm just going to keep just one metal cube sort of like in the scene. So we just want to have Ruby and then like one just metal cube to start off. Okay, so you should have prefabs for some of the things from last time. But anyways, let's go ahead to Ruby. And we're going to add the beginnings of our physics system. So we're going to go ahead to Ruby. We're going to go to Add Component, and we're going to go here to Physics. No, it's Rigid Body 2D, sorry. Rigid Body 2D. This is going to allow us, you see some values here as far as mass, gravity. So this will be some of the things like if we were working on a platformer, let's say, where we want to have a certain mass when it comes, and it's sort of like how that interplays with gravity. That's going to be sort of like where we're going to be working with that kind of stuff. For now, we're going to be using sort of because of how our maps are going to be, we're going to have kind of a simpler version of that. But anyways, we've now added Rigid Body 2D, and then we're going to go ahead and just add Ruby to our prefab folder. Okay, so Ruby is good to go. We're going to click and drag her down to prefabs. So now, if we change something in her prefab, it would sort of update across to all of the different like kind of copies of that prefabricated folder. We're going to do some edits to the one in the copy, like in the scene, just to illustrate how you adjust, how you kind of push changes to your kind of master prefab. So let's go ahead back to Ruby, and we go ahead and if we would click on play, she's gonna, well, just see. She's gonna fall, okay? That's because, whoops, there's gravity. So we can go ahead and we're gonna actually turn off gravity, set that to 0, okay? So now, let's play it again. And now we can kind of move normally. All right. Now what we're going to do next is we're going to add basically a box collider so that like I can't like just pass through objects, because that's not cool. All right. So let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and add a box collider 2D. And if I go ahead and I click on this button here as far as the bounding box, it's going to show you like where Unity will interpret like where the kind of like the hitbox is for this object. So it'll consider this sort of square to be the boundaries of like where the this item is, like for the purposes of like running into something else. Okay. So I'm going to exit out of that. Okay, so I'd promised like, okay, so if I would something about prefabs and objects in the scene. So right now you look here, Ruby is a instance or a clone of this master kind of Ruby that we have in our prefabs folder. So if we would go and look at this Ruby in the prefabs folder, we would see that it doesn't have like a box collider. And we also see that the gravity is set to 1. So if we would like, click and drag this to the, like if we had added another Ruby, it would have those values because it didn't keep the values that we changed here in this Ruby in the scene. We overrode the prefab that we had sort of referenced at the beginning. So since we made these changes, we're going to now push these changes back to our master, to kind of the prefab version of Ruby that will be like the Ruby that we care about. So all we do is you see this overrides button, and we just go ahead and we just say apply all. That will then push any of the changes I made to this Ruby here in the scene to the Ruby that I have in my prefabs folder. And that's what we want ultimately. We want it so that like if we do something to the Ruby that we want all subsequent Rubies to have, we're going to make sure it's changed in the prefab version. Okay, cool. So there's that. All right, the other thing we're going to do here is with Metal Cube. We added a box collider here. Well, we need it to be able to interact with another item. So like we need to tell Unity, hey, this is another object that has like kind of like collision boundaries. So we're gonna add a box collider. And I might play with this in a different lesson, like, 'cause if you look here, like see how it kind of encompasses the shadow? I don't know, we might change that later. Also note too, if you go to the Metal Cube prefab, hey, I don't see a box collider. If you make any changes to something in the scene, just go ahead and push it to the master, okay? So now we look here, we click on play, and let's test this. Good. But you see Ruby's kind of like bending like that. We do have, like, so now we are sort of making it so that Ruby is unable to like occupy the same sort of space as a different object. See what I mean about that shadow? I don't know. So what we're going to do is we're going to make an adjustment to Ruby. This time I'm going to just do the prefab. And now let's do the one in the scene and then just push the changes out. We're going to go ahead to our rigid body 2D, and where it says constraints, we're going to freeze the rotation along the Z axis. That's going to make it so that like if I collide with something, it doesn't like rotate me. So I'll show you what that looks like now. So now when I try to bonk into an object, I don't like sort of like rotate and like bounce off. So that's where we're going here. So now this is the next thing we're going to do in the next lesson. You see this sort of like jitter or this bounce? We're going to be working with this with how we calculate our movements. Basically, there's a kind of an argument between the physics system, the art system, and some of the things that, like how we had coded the movement system earlier. We just need to make some adjustments and add some code. We got to add this to our, we got to push that change that we did that freeze of the Z-axis. Anyways, that's it, folks. I wish you the best of luck. Great stuff.